What's up, truckers? Welcome back to Young Diesel Trucking Reacts. Before we dive into today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to tell you could save your entire career, your family's future, and maybe even your life. Today we're talking about something that nobody in the trucking industry wants to discuss openly, something that's been hidden in the shadows while everyone focuses on the glory stories and the big money tales. I'm talking about the brutal reality that's destroying trucking businesses faster than a blown engine on I-80. You think you know the trucking business? You think you've got what it takes to make it as an owner-operator or start your own fleet? Well, buckle up, because the statistics I'm about to share with you are going to shake you to your core. Here's the cold, hard truth that nobody talks about. 90% of new trucking companies fail. Not 60%, not 70%, but a staggering 90%. That means if you're sitting there thinking about starting your own trucking business, you got a 9 out of 10 chance of losing everything you've worked for. But here's what's even scarier. This isn't just about new guys jumping in without experience. This is happening to seasoned drivers who've been behind the wheel for decades. Guys who know every truck stop from coast to coast, who can back a 53-footer into a dock blindfolded, who've weathered ice storms in Wyoming and desert heat in Arizona. Even they're getting crushed by forces they never saw coming. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening out there. In just the first 4 months of 2023, over 31,000 trucking companies either shut down completely or were forced to sell out to bigger fleets. That's not a typo. 31,000 companies gone. Just like that. Think about that for a second. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were real people with real families, real dreams, and real bills to pay. Drivers who mortgaged their homes to buy their first truck. Families who put everything on the line, believing in the American dream of being their own boss on the open road. And here's the part that should terrify every single person watching this video. The failure rate is accelerating. It's not getting better, it's getting worse, much worse. So, what's killing these businesses? What's the invisible enemy that's taking down trucking companies faster than DOT violations at a roadside inspection? The answer is more complex and more dangerous than you might think. First, let's talk about the money trap. Everyone sees the gross revenue numbers and thinks they're going to get rich. They see loads paying $3,000, $4,000, even $5,000, and their eyes light up with dollar signs. But here's what they don't calculate: the real cost of operating a truck in 2025. So, your average cost per mile to operate a truck today is hovering around $1.75 to $2, give or take. That's including fuel, which honestly is eating up roughly 25% of your gross revenue. Then you've got insurance, and for new operators, that can run anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month for each truck. Maintenance and repairs, man, those can hit you with a $15,000 bill out of nowhere, no warning at all. And let's not forget about equipment payments. They just never stop coming, do they? But here's where it gets really dangerous. Most new operators, they base their whole business model on current freight rates. They look at today's market and, well, they think it's going to stay that way forever. So they finance equipment, hire drivers, and commit to all these expenses based on peak market conditions. Then reality hits like a freight train. The freight market, man, it's more volatile than a meth head at a truck stop. One month, you're making money hand over fist, and the next, you're practically begging for loads that barely even cover your fuel costs. And when that market turns against you, it doesn't just hurt, it kills. I've seen owner-operators who were making $200,000 a year suddenly find themselves upside down, owing more on their trucks than they're worth with payments they just can't make and loads that don't pay enough to cover their operating costs. That's not just business failure, that's financial devastation. But the money problems are just the beginning. What's really killing trucking businesses is something most drivers never see coming: the complexity trap. When you're a company driver, you show up, drive the truck, and go home. Someone else handles the paperwork, the regulations, the insurance claims, the customer complaints. But when you become an owner-operator or start your own company, you're not just a driver anymore, you're a business owner, and that changes everything. Suddenly, you're responsible for DOT compliance, FMCSA regulations, state permits, fuel taxes, quarterly reports, insurance claims, equipment, maintenance schedules, driver qualification files, and, man, about 100 other things that honestly have nothing to do with actually driving a truck. And here's the kicker. The government doesn't care if you understand these regulations or not. Ignorance isn't a defense. You make a mistake on your logbooks, miss a DOT inspection requirement, or file your taxes wrong, and you can face fines that will put you out of business overnight. I know guys who've been hit with $50,000 fines for record-keeping violations. $50,000. That's more than most owner-operators make in profit in an entire year. One mistake, one oversight, one misunderstood regulation, and you're done. But wait, it gets worse. The insurance situation in trucking right now is absolutely brutal. Commercial trucking insurance has skyrocketed, and for new operators, it's becoming nearly impossible to get coverage at any reasonable price. Here's what's happening. Insurance companies are fleeing the trucking industry because of massive lawsuit settlements. We're talking about $10 million, $20 million, even $100 million settlements becoming common. So insurance companies are either refusing to cover trucking companies or charging premiums that make it impossible to operate profitably. A new trucking company today might pay $15,000 to $25,000 per year per truck just for insurance. That's before you even turn the key. And if you have any kind of accident, even a minor one, your premiums can double or triple overnight. I've seen owner-operators who had one accident, not even their fault, and their insurance renewal came back at $40,000 per year. How do you make money when you're paying $40,000 just for the privilege of operating legally? Now let's talk about the equipment trap. This is where good drivers make fatal business mistakes. They buy equipment based on emotion instead of economics. They want the shiny new truck, the latest technology, the most comfortable cab, but every dollar you spend on equipment is a dollar that has to be earned back through freight revenue. Here's the scary part. Many owner-operators finance their equipment during the peak market years of 2021 and 2022. They bought $200,000 trucks with $3,000 monthly payments based on freight rates that were historically high. Now, those same trucks are worth $120,000, rates have dropped by 30 to 40%, and they're still stuck with those $3,000 payments. That's not just being upside down on a loan, that's being buried alive by debt. And when you combine high equipment payments with low freight rates and high operating costs, there's no mathematical way to make it work. But here's what's really going to shock you. The biggest killer of trucking businesses isn't any of the things I've mentioned so far. It's something much more basic and much more preventable. The number one reason trucking businesses fail is cash flow management, plain and simple. Most trucking companies die not because they're unprofitable, but because they run out of cash before they can collect what they're owed. Okay, so here's how it works. You deliver a load on Monday, but you don't get paid for 30, 60, sometimes even 90 days. Meanwhile, you got fuel costs, insurance payments, equipment payments, and driver wages that have to be paid right away. You're constantly floating thousands of dollars in receivables while your expenses just keep piling up. Just one slow paying customer, one disputed invoice, or one customer who goes out of business owing you money, and suddenly you can't make payroll. You can't pay your fuel bill. You can't make your truck payment. It's game over. I've seen profitable trucking companies with good customers and steady freight go out of business just because they couldn't manage their cash flow. They had money coming in, but it just wasn't coming in fast enough to cover the expenses going out. Now here's where this gets really ugly. When trucking companies start failing, they don't just disappear quietly. They create chaos throughout the entire industry. Drivers don't get paid, customers don't get their freight delivered, suppliers don't get paid for fuel and parts. It's like a domino effect that spreads throughout the entire supply chain. And right now, we're seeing this domino effect accelerating. Small trucking companies are failing so fast that it's creating disruption throughout the entire freight industry. Shippers are having trouble finding reliable carriers. Drivers are jumping from company to company trying to find stable employment. The entire system is becoming unstable. But here's what should really concern everyone watching this video. The failure of small trucking companies is concentrating more and more power in the hands of mega carriers. When 90% of new trucking companies fail, who benefits? The big guys. The companies that can weather the storms, absorb the losses, and keep operating when times get tough. This isn't just about individual business failures. This is about the fundamental structure of the trucking industry changing in ways that could affect every driver's career prospects for decades to come. So, what does this mean for you? Whether you're a company driver thinking about becoming an owner-operator thinking about starting your own fleet, or just someone who wants to understand what's really happening in this industry, you need to understand these realities. The trucking business isn't just about knowing how to drive a truck. It's about understanding business finance, regulatory compliance, risk management, and market dynamics. It's about having enough capital to survive the inevitable downturns. And it's about building systems and processes that can handle the complexity of modern trucking operations. Most importantly, it's about being realistic about the risks. The trucking industry can be incredibly rewarding, but it can also be incredibly unforgiving. The difference between success and failure often comes down to preparation, capitalization, and really understanding what you're getting into. Here's my advice. If you're thinking about starting a trucking business, don't do it based on current market conditions. Don't do it based on what you think you can make. Do it based on what you can afford to lose. Because honestly, the statistics don't lie and the odds are stacked against you. But if you're determined to make it work, educate yourself. Learn the business side, not just the driving side. Build relationships with other successful operators. Have a solid business plan and enough capital to survive the tough times. And most importantly, never assume that what's working today will work tomorrow. The trucking industry is changing faster than ever before. Technology, regulations, market conditions, and customer expectations are all evolving rapidly. The companies that survive will be the ones that can adapt and evolve with these changes. That's all for today's video. If this opened your eyes to the reality of trucking business failures, hit that like button and share it with every driver you know. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because we're going to keep diving deep into the topics that really matter to truckers. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about what's really happening in this industry, the better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions about your career and your future. Stay safe out there and keep on